Hello, my name is Tomasz, and this is the first video for quite a long time. I'm really sorry I haven't been recording anything for like over a month. However, I've been really busy at my work and other community activities, so sorry and excuse me. And today I want to share with you my journey as a developer of a community or so-called independent publisher connector for Power Automate. So the journey is quite easy. I mean, this development is quite easy. First, you just need to create a regular custom connector. Then you have to download it using Python simplets to Windows console. Then you need to a little bit tweak it using, for example, Visual Studio, like add some metadata that is not present when you're developing that custom connector. And finally, you have to publish it for the certification. Oh, and before you do publish it for the certification, you have to test it on your own. So like you need to perform actually 3 types of tests, and then you need to make screenshots of the outcomes of those tests, and then finally attach them to your pull request that you'll submit your new connector for review and then certification. And after certification, it will appear as an independent publisher connector. All right, ready? So let's begin. I'll just try to explain you how to create your own independent publisher connector using this API, the Zippopotamus. Zippopotamus is just a very free and easy service that allows you to simply provide either a postal code or a city and a state to retrieve some metadata around that location, like latitude, longitude, state name, city name, and so on. That API is for free. It does not require any kind of authentication, so that is pretty easy then. And it covers already over 60 countries that you can actually request location. So it has 2 methods, so this will allow me as well to show you some more steps around creation of the custom connector. Okay, so like the first method, just to finish with, the first method is to get location details by providing the zip code, and then the second one is to get location details by providing the state and the city name. Okay, so to create your first custom connector, or maybe you do already have a custom connector, but then if you do have one, please as well watch this part, because it's really important to tweak as much your connector before downloading it as possible. Like you have to really provide a lot of metadata, and so with that you will be actually able to really create a very high quality independent publisher connector. So first, navigate under the data in Power Automate portal, and then to custom connectors. Next, obviously you have to create a new custom connector, and here you have a couple of options. So you can create one from a blank, as I'm going to do. You can create from Azure Service, you can import OpenAPI file or a Postman collection, or even import it from a GitHub if there is anywhere a file hosted that you can import. So I'll start with the blank. I'll call it Zippopotamus. And now we can actually start creation. Speaking about the independent connectors, you cannot upload icon, because the icon that is going to be used is always going to be, let me show you, that one that you can already see once you navigate to connectors. So all the independent publisher connectors will have this icon by default. So like you cannot replace it with your own. So that's for the first thing. And then the second one, if you're speaking about the color, you need to use that one. So that's the color that you have to use. Then the host. The host in our case is just this. Sorry, without the HTTPS. I'll just close that tab. And the base URL is just that. So then let's navigate to the security, which is the second type. Now, speaking about the security, it again depends on your API, I mean on the endpoint that you're trying to create a custom connector for. So in terms of the Zippopotamus, there is no authentication. Although you can have the basic authentication that requires username and password, or you can have API key or the OAuth 2.0. So depending on what you actually want to achieve, the authentication is just different. So in my case, I'll just use this authentication, and then we can navigate actually to new definition. So first I'll create actions, that are triggers in that API. And then the summary, so for each field, you should really provide some of the information. Like if you don't know what that specific field is going to be used for, click on that link to learn more, and then you will learn what is this actually value used for. So like summary is used to simply be displayed on the title of an action. So this will be get location details for postal code. Now speaking about the description, again, click to learn more just to get more information. The description is going to be used either here under the information when hovered over the action title. Then speaking about the fields, I'll get back to that later, but basically this is the information displayed inside a field that helps author, maker to understand what kind of input is required. All right. Now, operation ID is that one that is going to be used in the definition of the postman, in the definition of that custom connector JSON. So I'll call this like that. Now, request, that's something we can actually import from sample. So first, the URL. URL is that easy. And then, because we need to have country and postal code present as variables because they will be changed, I'll just add those curly brackets around those two values. What will simply replace them and like make them into variables. That is get. Well, there is no header, so we should simply need to define, and that's actually it. So now I can import it, and here I have my first request present. Now you need to actually navigate to every parameter, to every like header, every variable that is going to be created automatically by that designer. So in my case, no, thank you, I'll go to country now. And here again, you have a couple of values of configuration options that you can actually choose from. So first, again, the description summary, like where are these two being used? Well, description, as you saw, is being used inside the field. Meanwhile, the summary is displayed as a label of that field in like both fields, like both places. So over the field and inside, basically over the field. Description inside the field, summary over the field. Okay, so I'll just use country because there is like nothing much to say, or maybe it's quite an easy. And now below we have again a couple of configuration options that we can set. For example, if the field is set as a required, then obviously it will be marked with this red asterisk. Now about the visibility, that's again something that is worth to click to learn more and to see how they behave. For example, actions with important will be always shown as a first to the user. With advanced will be shown only after clicking these advanced options. The same applies if we set advanced visibility for the whole action, not only for the parameter but for the whole action. Internal are only visible like internally, so they're not visible for the user. In my case, I'll just say it is important because I want the country to be visible first. Now the second thing is about the type. So what kind of information we're expecting. And then speaking about the type, again, what format is that type expecting. And finally, if there is a dropdown. So if we only decide to use static dropdown, then we need to provide comma delimited values. If dynamic, well, then it's a bit more complex. There are as well blog posts over the internet so that they will guide you through how to create a dynamic dropdowns. Here I could say that I want a static values, but then I should actually copy paste all these values, all those codes. So just give me a minute, I'll do that, and well, see in a moment. So I'll just use Excel to get those. Okay, so with that, I can use comma separated values. I have them all. So those are the values that I can actually choose. And well, that's it, at least for the country. So I'll just get back. And then I'll as well update the postal code. Yes, it is required. Yes, it is important. And that's it. So I have already defined input variables like query string variables, path variables, whatever, for this particular request. Now speaking about the response, here again, I can define a couple of responses. What is important, don't define or even don't try to leave empty responses. For example, if your endpoint is returning dynamic schema values depending on like whatever it happens there, and then you just cannot define every kind of response that is being returned by that endpoint, then instead of leaving empty response, just leave no response. And then, well, that will be makers who will be like forced or requested to use the parse JSON action to actually parse whatever is returned. However, if you want to certify that connector later, just don't leave empty responses because they will not work. Now in my case, the response is quite easy. So I'll just get back here and, well, for example, there is a response present for that particular case. So I just need to change the default one to, again, import from sample. And here I have all the parameters that are found in a body. I'll replace it, okay, let's leave it as a default one. And then here again, you should actually define every possible value. So this is country, and here you can use it from, retype it from the capital letter, because here again, this description is going to be used where? Well, you guessed it right. It will be visible under the description of the dynamic outcomes. So here is the name of the dynamic outcome, and here is the description. So as well, just be sure that you really provide here some descriptive information. Well, in terms of country, I don't think it actually requires any kind of description. And then here again, you can define whether you want this returned dynamic outcome to be visible as a first one. So whether it's important, or if it is advanced, or if it is not accessible by the user. I'll just leave it as it is. So country. And finally the postcode. All right, so this is the response that I'm going to use, and actually my first action is ready. So right now I'm able to create a new action that is now going to be called get details by postal code. That way. let's use this kind of description of that action. Let's to obtain latitude, longitude, and on location details for a given state and city. All right, so here again, we need to navigate to get the URL, and then import the request from sample is again get. Here I have three variables or query parameters. So first is going to be country, then state, and then city. Obviously, if you're creating like a post request or put or delete or anything else where you have as well data in a body, then those parameters that you will put in a body, that JSON schema for the body, it will be as well transformed into parameters that you will have to describe and well document using those summaries and descriptions and so on, so that when makers are going to use your actions, they will be really aware like how they should use them. However, in my case, because it's only a get method, and therefore the only parameters I can actually define here are in the query string. So again, import, and then I need to update them. And here again, what I can do is to say that this action, this parameter, is actually a static one, list or drop down, and I'll just copy paste the list of all those countries I do have there. So with that, and it's important, with that I have the country described. The next thing is the state. Now, because this particular endpoint does not provide another endpoint where I would be able to like call with the country and get in response a list of all states. Therefore, I cannot make the state as a dynamic dropdown, because like I'm not able to actually obtain the list of dynamic values for this particular country. If I were able to get this kind of correlation, or if there were such an endpoint in that provider's REST API, then I could use it. However, in that case, because there is none, well, the only thing I can do actually for state is to simply leave it as disabled and simply as a string input variable. So state, and then the last one is going to be the city, which obviously is also not present as a dynamic variable. Okay, so that for this path. Now the response. I need to define the response, although I don't really know what is a possible outcome. So I'll just call that particular one. It looks the same as the previous one. So again, I'll just import it, and then I again need to update all those parameters. All right, so that I have done. Basically, this actually completes what I'm able to do with this custom connector. So to be honest, because the Zippopotamus just have two actions, those two actions are not defined, the next step I have to do is to maybe add some custom code if I'm a C# developer, because maybe the API requires some kind of transformations before the data is passed back to the user, or is passed to the endpoint, or whatever. Like in my case, I'm not a developer and I will just not touch this step. This is quite new. It has been released recently. So if you'd like to work more, like get more into details, then I refer you to the documentation. All right, and the last step is that we have to create the connector and then test it. So first we need to create it. Right, and now we should be able to test it. So let me just check with that data that is present here. US and the postal code like that one. Done. So it worked fine. We got data returned. And then the second one, let's try as well. So it will be again US. Now state for this particular one is going to be state California, like abbreviate. Oh, maybe we'll just use that one. So MA. And city is going to be Belmont. And test it. And that one works as well very fine. So this is the first test that you have to perform to validate whether your connector is working or not. All right, so with that I can say connector is working. Let's close it. Okay, now the second thing I have to do, the second test that you have to perform is to create your own Cloudflow and to check if those actions, if that API actually works in a, let's say, productive scenario of your Cloudflow. So I'll just create a new hippopotamus test Cloudflow, trigger it manually. And then I will you have to put the 2 or 3 actions that are defined in API. Well, in my case, I just have 2 actions, so I'll just use them too. You will be able to find your custom connector under custom. Obviously, just give it some moments after you publish it, like 2-3 minutes to appear. And then I'll just use the first one, so get by state and city. Now you can see that like country, state, city are defined as those summaries. So those fields are the summaries. Here are the descriptions. And because I chose it as a drop down, I'm now able to simply well, navigate to like US. It was what kind of MA, and then Belmont and state MA, or maybe not. And then the second one is that action called get location or postal code. So here again I'll just use US, and as a postal code I'll just use that one. All right, and with that I can simply save it and test it. Now, if it works for you, then just don't forget to actually make a screenshot, because you need to provide that screenshot as well as a proof that your custom connector is actually working in a Cloudflow. Now, yep, it runs successfully. You can as well like expand those actions so that they are visible to the reviewer, and so everything works fine. All right, so that was the first part that we had to do in Power Automate portal. Now the second step that we have to do is actually go to where was that? Here, non-Microsoft Publisher certification process, where you have very briefly and very detailed way describe what you have to do step by step. So because we're doing an independent publisher connector, just don't do step 1, because we don't need to actually register this connector up front. You can focus on actually step number 4 first, because first you need to download it. So you have to navigate here under this command line interface CLI tool for Azure. There's going to be a Python CMDLETs that you're going to use in your console. And then once you download it and install it, you'll have to execute these 2 instructions. So first is the pakun -N that is going to walk you through the login process. Like, because I logged in already, therefore I'm just logging in successfully, and then in a moment, like in a second. However, if you are not logged in yet, then you'll be prompted to navigate to a specific URL in your browser, then copy paste an authentication code displayed here, and then once authenticated in a browser, this console will simply, well, be logged in. And then the second thing is to type in pakun download and then follow the instructions displayed by that software. So first you need to choose which environment you want to download your custom connector from. I'll be downloading from the 5, so the testing environment. And then you need to type which connector you want to download. Now lastly, well, it's going to be downloaded obviously to that location where you are present at the moment. So in my case, this is that location. I'll just navigate there and move those files elsewhere. So give me a moment. So I have a folder that is called the community connectors in my directories, and this is where the shared zippopotamus is now present. Now you have to as well now perform a couple of more tweaks. So first open all those JSON files in the Explorer or the editor of yours. I'm using obviously the Visual Studio Code. Now first thing you have to do is to add to the info path, so here, a set of information that you will find again here in the description. It is present right in here in step number 3, where you explain which metadata you have to add. So first you need to add information about the publisher and stack owner properties, and you have to add them into the API properties JSON. And then to the AP definition Swagger JSON, you have to add information about the contact and this XMS connector metadata. Here, luckily, we have all them present. So first, I'll just get these two and paste them to API properties JSON. Oh, the publisher is already present. And then stack owner, let's call them, that is zippopotamus US. All right, this is like the URL of the owner who is actually managing that API. And then I have to again navigate to the browser and update the contact information. So under the info, you need to provide the contact information. So here again, just provide your information, your contact details. Now, speaking about the contact email and URL, you might want as well maybe to create some specific contact details for that independent connector, so that if anyone has any questions to you, they will not be contacting your like primary inbox or primary mail, but maybe you have another inbox, or you can create an alias that will be used for all those contacts from the independent publisher queries. That is up to you. I'm just using my regular email here. And then the last thing you have to as well copy and paste is this metadata that you need to add below info. So like here and a comma. Now the website. The website is obviously maybe I'll just copy paste it so I'm not making any errors. So that's the website. Hopefully they do have as well the privacy policy somewhere here on the side, but it seems not. So let's assume that this is just the get endpoint. There is no privacy policy needed, although we need to put something in here. And then the categories. Categories are predefined here again in the documentation. In this documentation here. So like once you navigate a little bit up, you'll find this information present here. So you have a couple of them to choose from, like business management, business intelligence, collaboration, commerce, communication, blah 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 blah, and a lot of others. I will choose, to be honest, the commerce, because I just find that this custom connector is really useful for the commerce. So I'll just use commerce, and the other one. This could be like either marketing or now that's a good question. What else? I'll just use marketing. because it's again somehow related to marketing and communication and so on. Now just go through the rest of your code and try to fill in all the empty properties, or remove them if you think they're not needed. Like for example, for consumes and produces, in my case this is going to be the application JSON. So I can simply put here application JSON, because both methods are actually consumes JSON and produces JSON. What we also have to do is for all those get queries or get methods, get actions defined in our API, for the parameters, we need to define how they are encoded. So despite the fact that Microsoft, like this XMS URL encoding parameter is by default set to single, even if not present, even if not added to the API definition, still it has to be visible and added, because that is something requested by the certification process. So I'll just add it here, single, and the same I have to do for those two parameters that are present, or three parameters are present in a second method. So I need to add them here and there. All right, next you can simply navigate up, just review all the changes, or if there are like any empty elements that you should remove. As well, remove all the Unicode escaped characters. Like if you find anywhere something like that, just get rid of it and simply replace it with this proper value. Also, remove every empty response schema, as I mentioned that before. So if you have any action that has a dynamic response, then it is actually on the maker side to create parse JSON actions and then just parse those responses the way they need it, but you just cannot have an empty response schema. Remove all empty properties that are not required, like description in my case, in this case is required, so don't remove it. You can either fill it with the information or just leave it empty. Remove all not needed operations. So again, if you have an operation which is empty, just remove it. And that's it. So let's save it. And then let's move on with the certification steps. So the next thing we have to do is to actually navigate down and perform that third test. So to validate our custom connector file. So I have to run this pack and validate API definition and location of my API definitions, JSON, blah, blah, blah. So to do that, I'm navigating back to the command prompt. I need to switch now to other, to that location, and simply paste these to validate. All right. All right. So the point is that first, I should put any kind of description to the empty descriptions, and then as well to rename the default responses to something else, because the default response cannot have any parameters. And of course, we have to provide a description for the custom connector itself. So I need to put something in here. I can choose some information that is present on the side, but I have to write it on my own actually. All right, so this is done. Then I need to as well validate the other error that has been that appeared. Also, that I need to rename the default responses with, for example, 200. So that is the correct response. And here as well, it just cannot be. It just cannot be that one. And lastly, there was like a bad request URL for that endpoint, but that's nothing I can actually handle. So I just need to check it once again. Now the validation is successful. So here again, you need to make a print screen of that outcome, so that this is the third validation verification of the proof that you have to provide along with the submission of a custom connector. Now, the last step that we have to actually perform with preparation of the information that has to be present for that moment of submission is, again, let's switch to the documentation, and at the bottom, like step number 4, is to create a readme file artifact. So here we have a readme file example that we can simply use. You can just copy paste it, or you can as well navigate to Microsoft Power Platform GitHub repository, and then there you will as well find information about the readme and how it should look like. Or actually you can simply navigate to any existing independent publishers connector that has been already like submitted and see how their readme looks like, and you can like simply copy paste that one or create it yourself. And just save it as and all files. Done. Readme, so I'll just navigate back to here and get that blank template to fill in. So you'll see how this will look like in the end. All right, template. And simply copy paste, fill in all the information. So you know what, I'll just rename the other one to follow the same nomenclature. I'm just a freak in terms of having everything really written properly. This way. All right. Right, and that is basically it. So with that, we are now able to say, yes, we have reached the last step of the preparation. So right now we're actually able to submit. Now this is where the funny part begins actually. So the first thing you have to do is to navigate to Microsoft Power Platform connectors inside the dev branch, and you need to create your own fork. So just click on fork, and then you will be navigated to your own GitHub. If you don't have one, then actually you need to create an account, and well, just be sure that, well, you do have an account. Anyways, once you're forked, just be sure that you're on the latest upstream, so simply fetch and merge. And okay, so like my fork is now already merged. Now I'm going to use Visual Studio. For example, if you were watching Dan Laskevich's video, he was using GitKraken, which is also a cool application, although I somehow never got used to it. So what I'm going now to do is to use Visual Studio with the GitHub add-on added. First, I need to clone the repository. So let's use the git clone, provide the URL. Wrong, sorry, I just made a typo there. So again, and I'll clone it to that location here. So I have this Power Platform connectors, and let's add it to the workspace. Right, and there is my Power Platform connectors present. Right, so the next thing you should do to like have it all clear, I learned that from Daniel Laskevitz as well, is to create your own branch. So let's just type git and then create a branch. Well, yes, here and right. So now I have a new branch created, and like all the changes that I'm going to now perform for this particular connector are going to be done under that specific branch. And now the next or the last thing I have to do is to simply copy these 3 files and move them to that newly created repository under the independent publisher connectors. Create your own directory. So I'll just create a new folder called right, and paste them here. You can as well paste here all the screenshots that you want to attach to provide verification and proofs that your connector has successfully passed all the 3 validations. Or you can upload and host them somewhere publicly, like on your blog or whatever. And so with that, you're now ready to go to source control and to make your first commit. However, that commit name just cannot be anything you want. It has to follow again the specific pattern, and the pattern is the name of the connector, and then in brackets you need to like use the value independent publisher. So like in my case, it's going to be Zippopotamus independent publisher. All right, and commit. Again, so the publish changes, I'll publish them at the moment to my origin, so to my own repository, to my own fork. And with that, I am now able to create this new pull request. Here, when doing the pull request, you're going to make this pull into the dev repository under Microsoft Power Platform connectors. You need to again use this kind of title for the pull request, and then you have a lot of information in a description that you need to provide. So first, you need to tick mark all those checkboxes that you provide, that you attest, that you certify, that you comply and whatever, right? So that everything here is following the requirements that are present and needed, expected from every independent publisher connector. And also, you need to put in a description of this pull request hyperlinks to those 3 screenshots, which are confirming that your custom connector has been successfully tested in test console of the custom connector designer, in your own Cloudflow, at least 3 actions, and as well in the Azure console, in Azure CLI, where you are testing that with the Python CMLet. So with those 3 screenshots, you are now able to simply create a pull request, the last button here, and then you'll be contacted by the independent publisher connector program lead or whomever from that program with information if there is anything else you should change in your custom connector, if there is anything you should modify, and then if everything is fine, your connector is going to start its certification path, and then will be simply published and will be rolled out to the whole world so that anyone in the world will be able to use your own custom connector. And that's a wonderful feeling. So, well, with that having said, I am now done. Like, I've said everything that I wanted, everything that I learned during my certification path and process. If you have any questions, put them down in comments below. Also in the comments below, you'll be able to find link to detailed instruction, like what steps you need to perform to achieve what I have achieved. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, bye bye.